That's Nick. Oh. That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which just opened the South by Southwest Film Festival for the 2023 edition. It is being released courtesy of Paramount on March 31st, 2023. It is the third film from directors John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein.
What else have they directed?
Well, notably they wrote Spider-Man Homecoming, the 2017 version of that rebooted blah blah blah. Their debut together, I believe, was Vacation with Ed Helms and Christina Applegate, which was a resurrection of the National Lampoon Chevy Chase films, and Game Night, starring Jason Bateman amongst many other people, which we also saw. They like playing games.
Did you like this movie?
I didn't hate this film. It was just fine. I'm glad it leaned into the fun of it for being a Hasbro based on a board game film. Notably, this is also the fourth film in this particular universe that was unrelated to the trilogy of products that came up before. I did see the film Dungeons & Dragons from 2000. I remember being a kid and being a fan of Jeremy Irons, of course. I really don't remember a lick about it. I never saw the 2005 television film Wrath of the Dragon God, or the 2012 direct-to-video film The Book of Vile Darkness, although that is a title I think that should have been used for something else.
Okay, the synopsis. A charming thief and a band of unlikely adventurers embark on an epic quest to retrieve a lost relic, but things go dangerously awry when they run afoul of the wrong people. So the charming thief is Chris Pine.
Edgin, yeah, who's also executive producing.
I don't know much about role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, except that there are a lot of characters, a lot of possibilities. So there's no point, and this movie's like that too, right? There's a lot going on. So there's no point trying to explain every little thing.
Sure, it's an endless search where we're constantly diverted to find other things to get the object you need to move forward in this path, blah, 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 blah. So if you're a fan of that, great.
Basically, Chris Pine's wife died, so he's left with their kid, who is now an adolescent. And he's moved on, and he sort of is paired up with Michelle Rodriguez, but not in a romantic way.
A barbarian named Holga.
And they have assembled a group of thieves. So Justice Smith and Hugh Grant are part of that. And Hugh Grant has brought on another lady, Sophia.
A red wizard.
So they're thieves now, and they attempt to steal a tablet which is supposed to conjure a spell that can resurrect someone. So Chris Pine wants it to resurrect his dead wife. But when they're doing that, we realize that Hugh Grant and this lady he brought on,
Sophia,
they have bad intentions. They're like the villains, actually. So during that little heist, Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez get arrested. And then we flash forward 2 years, and we see that Hugh Grant is now the king of this kingdom.
He's Lord Neverwinter. They have dispatched the previous ruler of this kingdom.
And he has Chris Pine's daughter. Okay.
Kira, played by Chloe Coleman, who we just saw as Adam Driver's daughter in 65.
Oh. So, of course, Chris Pine not only wants his daughter back, but he wants that tablet so he can resurrect his dead wife. The tablet is in a vault. We find out that Hugh Grant, he's trying to steal a bunch of money from all the people in the kingdom. So they are they've used some spell to resurrect this stadium, to have these games, to get all these people to come. And then Sophia, she wants to turn all of the people in the stadium into her zombie slaves.
Which was a plan tried to be mounted by a red wizard from a century before.
So a bulk of the film is, in order to get into the vault, Hugh Grant and Michelle Rodriguez and their little gang have to find some sort of helmet.
Well, not Hugh Grant, Chris Pine.
I mean, sorry, not Hugh Grant, Chris Pine. They have to get a helmet from
Regé-Jean as Zenta,
which leads them to an underworld.
They call it the Underdark. I find it funny how these fantasy films, they either have horribly overwritten names like The Hunger Games or Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, or they're relatively simplistic. This isn't owlbear, as in this film, or the Underdark.
So obviously they get the helmet. They're able to stop the bad guys, and Chris Pine gets the tablet. But in the process, Michelle Rodriguez gets killed. And the tablet's only good for one use. Mm-hmm. So he decides to use it on Michelle Rodriguez because she's the only mom his daughter ever knew. Mm-hmm. The end.
Yep, there you go. That is pretty much it in a nutshell.
What do you want to say about this movie?
I don't mind Chris Pine. He's giving me kind of, as he's getting a little older, he could really head into an Alan Bates kind of territory. I get the sense that this film wanted to be kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy vibe with this ensemble of kind of, they're not really weird enough or offbeat enough, and it just doesn't have that, even though there's a creature that looks kind of like Michael Rooker that Michelle Rodriguez dispatches very early on in the film. But that said, it's just kind of, I guess if you let it wash over you, I think that if you're invested in the nomenclature of the games, of this board game, this card game, board game,
I'm not sure. I think Dungeons and Dragons is just cards, right?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We had a friend that was very heavily invested in that, and it would be at a
well,
whole...
he was doing it via Zoom, so I don't know. I don't know. But I already said I don't know, so...
Yeah, yes. So otherwise, I would find myself being like, okay, where we are and what are we still pursuing the helmet to get to beyond this door? And then once we get there, fine. Bradley Cooper has a cameo because Michelle Rodriguez was banished from her clan of the Cave Bear, I guess, because she invested in a relationship with this person, and he's kind of like the equivalent of a hobbit, where when they're standing next to each other, she's like Gandalf and he's...
Is he proportionate,
like Frodo.
though?
He's proportionately small.
Oh.
And he's fallen in love with another big lady who doesn't mourn leaving her tribe to be with him, which all of it feels very unnecessary. Rodriguez, she's kind of very much the same as she is as Letty in the Fast and the Furious films, kind of growling her way through it, although I don't mind her. It's odd because they describe themselves as brother and sister, so there's no...
You mean Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez.
So there's no sexual chemistry between them, which is interesting. Justice Smith, I think the weakest part of it is really Sophia Lillis as this druid. I forget the exact name of the Tieflin druid or whatever it is, because she can shapeshift. And while that does give rise to a really interesting, though very heavily CGI'd chase sequence in the film, she's got this kind of romance tension going on with Justice Smith's Simon in the background, which I don't think... To me, that was kind of like the real dead space of the film, especially with her character. Because I think somebody maybe a little older and more interesting I would have liked to see there.
The movie's meant to be funny, right?
I think it is. It is meant to be funny. It's meant to be fun, though not necessarily frivolous. This feels a lot more... Despite all the things going on and it being very much like a game being played, is a lot more cohesive and easy to follow than some Marvel films I've seen, where all kinds of things are happening and you have to take into account all these compounded information that's come before is going to come after it. So there is that going for it. Although,
does it look good?
It looks fine. It was lensed by Barry Peterson, who's done a whole did game night for these directors, but several Melissa McCarthy movies like Superintelligence and Thunder Force, if you remember that. It looks fine. There are some interesting creatures that happen that look fine to a point when all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is also heavily CGI. Yeah, I don't know. It was fine. It was better than I assumed going into it for a reboot of a... I mean, it's better than the Mortal Kombat films. By a long shot, actually. So I guess we should be thankful to Paramount for this. I don't know. I didn't need it. It's not for me, but I also wasn't mad at it. So there's that.
What would you give it?
I would give it 2.5.
Out of 5.
Yeah. That's
anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.